All is well. All is well because God sent God's Son in the form of a child to be born in a manger. All is well. Most people like all is well, but not everyone. I guess all is well is great for a plaque on the wall or for a great greeting. But really? All is well? I guess at Christmas time we often think about how all things should be well, but when we look back at our life, we realize that not all is well. And I guess it depends on what angle you're looking at the very things of your life. And that's what it was like for Ruth Pearson and her daughter, Jenny. Babies are beautiful. Really. And that's what it was like for Ruth Pearson and her daughter, Jenny. It wasn't July. There was no tinsel. There was no snow. It was just the normal world around them, as normal as it could be. It had been 2 years since the divorce. And last Christmas was a flop for Ruth and for Jenny. Ruth hated thinking about Christmas. Even though Christmas was still 6 months off, she didn't like to think about it, so she kept thinking about very other things. But there was a saying. There was this very saying that gave her hope, that gave her a little bit of hope in the midst of silver lining, and this was the phrase, was all is well. Mom, did you buy any Cheerios? Said Jenny one day as Ruth came in from the grocery store. Nope, not this time. But the good news is we saved a little bit of money and it was easier to carry all of the groceries. No popcorn, no Cheerios, no ice cream, no cocoa, no dish detergent. Feel how light this bag is. Oh, the bag is so light, said Jenny, speaking to her mom. All is well, right? Asked Ruth. All is well, said Jenny. Ruth wasn't satisfied with the answer, so she put her hand up to her ear and said, say it again. So Jenny played along a little and said, all is well, in a dramatic fashion. That's all the groceries, and they put the groceries away. But soon things will get better, said Ruth. What do you mean, things will get better? Things will get better because I am going to get a raise at my job, and things should get better, she said with a little bit of hope and a little bit of quiver in her voice. Does that mean you're going to go back to nursing school? Asked Jenny. No. I'm not sure we can still afford nursing school at this point. The bills are too high, and who really needs nursing school anyways? And so Jenny began to think to herself, and so she said, Mom, what if I get a job? And so her mom just laughs a little bit. You're too young, Jenny. And then Jenny thought again. Said, what if I sell stuff? Her mom thought to herself just a little bit, we've sold everything that's not bolted down to this house. We'd have nothing to sell. And then Jenny, with that young youthfulness, said, we have to have hope, Mom, right? And Ruth said, yeah, I guess we do. And so, can I? Asked Jenny. Well, Ruth began to be overwhelmed by all these other things and began to remember that the mail had come and began to look around for the mail in the house because she was really hoping that the mail had come and a child support check would come from Jenny's dad. So she went to get the mail in the dresser and she realized that there was no check from Jenny's dad, but instead it was just a letter from the landlord. And Jenny could tell that her mom was startled a little bit and said, Mom, are you all right? Yeah, I'm all right. All is well, Jenny. All is well. Well, Jenny quickly said, well, can I then? Can you what? Ruth said, being so distracted by the letter. Can I sell stuff? Ruth said, sure. So on Saturday morning, Jenny proudly gets out her red it's called, her red wagon. Thank you, I literally forgot. The red wagon, and she's pulling this red wagon, and it has all of this stuff in it, and it's cracking and it's squeaking as she walks down to the neighbors, and she goes to each door, and she knocks in, and she says, "Hi, my name is Jen Pearson, and I'm here to buy or sell some stuff." And so she went up to this one house, and it was the house of Amy Duvall. Amy was the plumber's wife. And so Amy opened up the door. She was still in her bathrobe. The curlers were still in her hair. She hadn't had her first cup of coffee yet. And when she opened up the door, her eyes squinted just a little bit because of the bright sun. And so Jenny said, "Hi, I'm Jenny Pearson. I'm here to buy and sell some stuff." Amy looked at her just a little. And Mrs. Duvall said, "That looks like a bunch of junk." And Jenny quickly chimed in, "Yeah, but it's good junk." And so she began to pull out some things. And first she pulled out this can. And it was a used coffee can that's empty. And she began to tell Mrs. Duvall all the things she could use this can for. "It's storage. You can put all these things in it." And Mrs. Duvall just shook her head and said, No, I don't need another empty can in my house." Well, Jenny next pulled out this used egg carton, and she began to tell Mrs. Duvall all the things that she could put in this egg carton, like jewelry and small little items. And again, Mrs. Duvall just shook her head and chuckled to herself and said, "I don't need an empty egg carton." There was a box in the wagon as well, but Mrs. Duvall didn't seem too interested in the box. Jenny opened up the box just a little bit and could show that there was Christmas ornaments in it and wanted to offer that. And Mrs. Duvall said, "Christmas in July? What? I don't even like Christmas," right? And of course, for young Jenny, that was offensive. And she said, "Why don't you like Christmas?" And she's like, "Well, some of us love Christmas and some of us don't. I just have too much to not like Christmas." And then Mrs. Duvall remembered something. "You said, Jenny, that you were coming to buy and sell stuff." "That's right," said Jenny. "And so hold on here for a moment," Mrs. Duvall said. Mrs. Duvall ran into her house and got something. And it was like this wooden stick. And so Jenny thought it was this wood stick, or maybe even thought it was like a leg of a chair or leg of a table. Didn't fully understand. And Mrs. Duvall offered Jenny to buy this wood stick for $1. Yeah. So Jenny sat there for a moment and thought, And then remembered she hadn't sold anything yet. And so she told Mrs. Duvall that she might come back for it later if she can sell some things. Well, Mrs. Duvall was really kind and gave her the wood stick and said, "Maybe you can get $1 for this somewhere else." So Jenny went off. She began to continue to knock on doors, but it was very little luck she had that day on the Saturday morning. And at one point she looked up and said, "God, just help me sell something. I don't want Mom to be sad." Very next moment, Jenny heard a honk honk. And here it was. This was Mr. Patrick. Mr. Patrick was raving in his big old red truck. But Mr. Patrick always waved to Jen, and so Jenny always waved back to Mr. Patrick. And Mr. Patrick had this big old scruffy beard and all this hair and a big red nose, and Jenny always thought that Mr. Patrick should be Santa Claus. And he even liked kids, too. And so Mr. Patrick waved, and, "What are you doing, Jenny?" And Jenny begins to tell him all the things that she's been trying to sell. And so Mr. Patrick, being a little eager, got out of his truck, and he looked a little dirty because he'd been helping dig some ditches for the county. And he came over, and Jenny began to show him all these things, right? So she lifts up the can of coffee. She lifts up the egg carton, and he didn't seem too interested in either of those things. Then he pointed out one little thing, and he asked, "What is this?" And Jenny said, "Well, that's an old broken can opener. Right? It doesn't work anymore, but I have a new use for it." And so she took out this can opener and started scratching her back with it. Right? And he said, "And you could use to scratch your back." Mr. Patrick just said clever and moved on. But then Mr. Patrick saw another box, that Christmas box yet again. And this time he opened it wide up, and the brass and the silver in it began to flash with the sun, and he began to pull out some things like a candy cane or a teddy bear or all these little things. But again, he began to rustle out in that box just a little bit. And then Jen could see the face. He began to get excited, and he began to have an idea, and so he took this box and he offered her $10 for this entire box of Christmas stuff. She was speechless. $10? Oh, as soon as she could even begin to say yes, he pulled out a crinkly old $10 bill, handed it to Jenny, and he said, "Merry Christmas, Jenny." Oh, Jenny began to run home. She was so excited. She just earned this $10 for her mom. She couldn't wait to tell her about this, but her mom knew that Jen was spending all day long trying to sell this stuff, but nothing would really help them. Nothing would really help them pay the bills, pay the rent, and $10 certainly wouldn't help them put more food in the food pantry. And so Jen came in as happy as she could be, telling her mom all about this $10 that she had just got. And Ruth began to try to have this little bit of smile on her face. She struggled a little bit to be that excited, and she struggled a little bit to be that thankful. It's okay, Brian. It's okay. Ruth began to struggle just a little bit. And so she asked her mom, "Mom, what's wrong?" She began to cry, and Jenny could begin to see the red tears in her eyes. And so Jenny put her hand on her mom's hand, and then her mom put her shoulders, her elbows up on the table, and just kind of sat there kind of sad. And then Jenny asked this question. She said, "Mom, tell me how come." Ruth said, "How come what?" She said, "Tell me how come all is well." Ruth began to say, "Well, all is well because, well, all is well. All is well." No, Jenny began to say, "Tell me how come all is well. You tell me every single Christmas. Tell me yet again right now, how come all is well?" Ruth tried to act like she remembered and said, "Well, all is well because all is well that." To be honest, Ruth couldn't remember why all was well. She began to realize and think about all the things that were going wrong, all the bills that she had to pay, and she couldn't fathom to think about how come all is well. And so Jenny began to say, "Mom," to her mom, but then Jenny remembered it. And Jenny, as quick as she could, she got up and she ran out of the house. And quicker than her mom could yell, "Jenny, wait! Jenny, where? What are you doing?" And so Jenny ran out back to the shed, and she began to rustle through this big box of stuff, but she couldn't find the thing she was looking for. So she moved to this other box that was from the yard sale. She began looking for this thing, but she couldn't find it. She even perused the trash looking for this thing, but she couldn't find it, but then she remembered. She remembered, and so she quickly grabbed her red wagon again and ran to Mr. Patrick's house. Got to Mr. Patrick's house, and as quick as she could open up the door, or knock on the door, the pleasant old man came and asked her, "What's up?" She said, "Mr. Pearson, I'm missing something. It's this like little thing. It's on a string, and it has like some glitter letters on it." And he asked, "Well, was it made out of clay?" "Yeah, it was made out of clay." And he smiled and said, "I remember that. It was so beautiful and so encouraging. I decided to give it to someone else. I decided to give it to Mrs. Buxton." Mrs. Buxton? Yeah, the lady across the street in the green house with the white fence. And so she quickly ran with her wagon to Mrs. Buxton's house. And she got to Mrs. Buxton's house and again knocked on the door and described it all. I'm looking for this little string with a little bit of clay on it. I'm looking for this thing. And she had this piece that came across her and said, "Oh, I gave that to Mrs. Smith." And then she realized that Mrs. Smith had given it to Mrs. Hess. And Mrs. Hess had given this to Mr. Bone. And Mr. Bone told that she'd sent it to John Curmudgeon's house. So she goes there, knocks on the door, and says, "Hi, my name is Jenny Pearson. and I'm looking for this thing. And it has a string, and it has some letters on it, and it's made out of clay. I'm looking for this thing, and I have some things to offer you. I'm willing to give you this can and begin to share all the things that this empty can could do. I'm willing to give you this because I have no money. And so I also give you this egg carton because I want this thing. And it showed him all the things that he could use with it. And I also have this back scratcher thing that I got as well. And I also have this wooden stick that I was also given. And I'll even give you my red wagon. I'll give you my red wagon. If you can tell me you have this thing on a string. Ruth was back at home. Ruth was back at home, and she thought that Jenny had been gone for about 2 hours and wondered if she should go find Jenny. But Ruth was contemplating something that was really bothering her. And she realized that she didn't have an answer to how come all is well. She couldn't think of all the answers. She thought, well, because it is, or don't worry, or just because, or all is well. She began to realize, and so she cried out to God. Ruth did. And Ruth said, God, have you forgotten me? If you don't love me anymore, just tell me. Just tell me, because I can't go on anymore. Ruth didn't realize that Jenny had quickly come home, and Jenny hopped on her mom's lap, and her faces were all filled with red. I mean, they were so red and hot because she had just been running, and she was so excited. And she said, I found it, Mom, and there it was. It was a Christmas ornament. This beautiful Christmas ornament. And so Ruth took it in her hands, turned it over a couple of times in her head, and in that moment, all these memories had come back from Christmases past. Do you remember now, Mom? Ruth remembered. Jenny had made this in the 5th grade. And she remembered looking at it, and it began to fade a little bit. The glitter started coming off, and the clay started having pieces struggled. But the message was still there. On one side, it said, all is well. And on the back side, it said, for unto us a child is born. In that moment, Jenny could watch her mom's face light up. And she could see that this weight that was on her shoulders began to lift up, and there was hope. And in this moment, Jenny said, Mom, do you remember now? Do you remember? All is well now, huh? Asked Jenny. And Ruth said, yes, all is well. All is well. She didn't know how things were going to get better in the future, but all is well. Now, as a storyteller, I get to know what's going on behind the scenes. And I get to know things that the characters don't know at the time of the story. What I know that Ruth and Jenny don't know at this point is that Mr. Patrick, who first bought that box for $10, had began to pass around that little ornament to the neighbors in town. And pass it around as a fundraiser to help raise money for Jenny and to raise money for Ruth. When Mr. Patrick had that brilliant idea, it was an idea to raise money in this unique way for her. And what they were planning to do is the next day, they were going to walk over to the Pearsons' house and yell in the middle of July with the loudest voice possible, Merry Christmas. And guess what? I also get to know as a storyteller that Ruth ends up finishing nursing school. And all things are going to work out for this family. Things will be rough, and there will things that won't go well. And yet Ruth knew that. Ruth knew that all was going to be well. No one had told her. No one had clued her in. But she knew that all was going to be well. So, she said to her daughter, and she was going to remind her daughter that all is well. Why? Because on Christmas, many years ago, Jesus entered our world. And the greatest story of teller of all times, named God, entered our world in the form of a baby. And Jesus was going to be with us and be with Jenny and Ruth forever and ever in his glory and his time. And so Ruth wanted her daughter to know all is well because Jesus has come into our world 2,000 years ago and will be with us till our story comes to an end. So all is well